6 o'clock on the dot. On the dot. And I know a lot of yins have kind of been worried about me because I've not been on. I've just been like doing little videos, and so I know I've gotten a lot of messages going, "Are you okay?" I've just been busy. And then if I'm putting my energy somewhere else, then I have to rest the other times. So if I'm busy preparing for something else, then I have to spend the time that I normally would spend on YouTube resting for my neuromuscular disorder to balance out my energy and stuff. So David just got back from the Pumpkin Festival. He's actually running to get some dinner because I'm not cooking after everything I've been through today. We started the morning at about 6 o'clock. It was cold. So I had on a coat and layers and was still wrapped in a blanket. And I thought there for a while, I was like, it's too cold. I can't do this. It was making my muscles really contract. And so for the first couple hours, I thought, I'm just going to go home. I'm going to take the Jeep and I'll come back and get him later. I'm going to go home. And then I got finally in a sunspot and got a little warmed up, and I thought, okay, this is not that bad. And it finally warmed up just enough to where I could handle it, and the sun came out just enough where I could handle it. It's still cold though. I made it till about 2:30, and are you back home? I'm back home too. I'm exhausted. Look at the rings under my eyes. I made it till about 2:30 from a 6 a.m. start. And Lane dropped me off the house, and they stayed till about 3. They had to come in and change the baby, and they placed a meal order at a restaurant to pick up. And so I got to cuddle the baby for a few minutes, and I've just been trying to get warm. Oh, thank you. I've just been trying to get warm ever since then because I got so chilled this morning, and it was just the wind. It was just so cold. Hi, Cindy. So David just got done. I told him to leave the car loaded until tomorrow. I'm not even worried about anything. I just wanted to come on here and do a proof of life, let you know I am okay. I'm just tired. And it was a good day. David stayed till 5:30, and I wimped out at 2:30 and let Lane bring me home, as you can see in the video. But it was just, my fingers still hurt. The wind was so cold. My fingers still hurt. And I was tired of sitting there wrapped up in a blanket looking like an Eskimo. So mostly good responses from people, and normally when we have a local event, we get really good responses from people because people are used to our way of life. I did have one rather odd interaction this morning. Leave it to me. And it would have to be like the moment that David walks away. And so he had walked to help the neighboring craft booth with the Wi-Fi connection, which was crappy. It was not working very well. And he walked away, and there was this little boy. We always enjoy the kids' reactions to our booth because most kids never get the option to see these things or touch these animals unless they touch fur, like what we bring. And so we let the kids kind of play around, touch stuff, and we'll brush it or smooth it back down later. We don't mind. We let them touch the skulls and the teeth because they're curious, and they don't have an open line of information about this thing, these things otherwise. And so there was a little boy. Well, he was beelining straight for the booth. And I was smiling because I enjoy seeing the kids come up and their reaction. And the mother was like, "Don't you touch those." And I was like, "No, it's okay." I was like, we expect for the kids to want to touch them. It's okay. And she goes, "No, don't you touch those." And he stopped because I guess he heard her voice change. And he looked at Mom, and she was like, "Those used to be real animals." Of course, me being the person I am, I said, "They're still real animals." And the boy was like looking back to her like, "I'm stuck in this limbo because this lady's being really nice, but Mom, what's up?" And when I said that back to the mother, she looked at me and she looked at the little boy. She goes, "Why don't you ask her how she gets the animals to give her their fur?" And I thought, don't put your kid in the middle of this. Don't put that weight on your child. If you have a beef with me, just have a beef with me. Don't put it on your kid emotionally. That's so tacky. Parents, that is so tacky. It puts those kids into catch-22, and that's not good for them. But I just looked at her and gave her the hooch eyes, like, "How dare you?" And the little boy looked at me, and he looked confused. And I looked back at Mom, and I said, Well, the spring collection's fixing to debut, and they need to shed their skins and get ready for spring couture. And she knew at that point I was going to be sarcastic and not very nice about it if she pushed it. So she calmed down. And the little boy just kind of gave a pleading look, and she kind of said, "Fine, go ahead." And he asked what all of them were, and I answered him every one, and he went just down the table and had a big time. And the mother finally calmed down a little bit. And she goes, "Well, these are actually really pretty." I said, "Yeah, they are." I said, "But when left on foot," I said, "with the population numbers at the rate they're growing," I said, "they get really sick and really disease ridden." I said, "So it's up to people like my husband to keep the population at a number to where we can all function and live together and these animals stay healthy and happy and have enough food." I said, "Because otherwise farmers lose their cattle." I said, "Suburbs lose their domestic pets, and even children get gone after." I said, "Our biggest fight the last 3 years has been the watershed issues with the beaver population in this area." I said, "It's really endangering a lot of acreage and the watershed off the mountain." She said, "I didn't know that." I said, "No, why would you?" I said, "If you don't have an interest and an understanding and you don't seek out an education," I said, "why would you know anything about this?" I said, "That's why we're here." And I said, "That's why we welcome children to interact with the fur." And she put her eyes down. And I thought, yeah, ignorance is sweet until you learn out just what you're missing, right? So, and that was the only really negative reaction. And she only stayed negative for a minute. I gave her my, "I'm not going to play this game" look. I was just like, "I'm not going to play this game." So it was so cold, Priscilla. I'm still cold. My fingers are not warm yet. And I've been home like 2.5, 3 hours, and I'm still cold. So me and Oscar have been burritoed up in the recliner trying to get warm. You went to work. All you've been through this week, you need to be resting. Priscilla, you take care of yourself. I'm going to probably not do anything but burrito up and just try to get warm the rest of the day. My hip is still having issues because it was trying to go out of socket a few weeks ago, and it's still been floating in and out. And so I'm really sore. But I mean, I'm going to be sore and not feel good wherever I am. So it was nice to get a few hours out of the house. But the wind and the cold was taxing on my body this morning. So I look worse than I did the other day because it was the wind. If it had just been still, it wouldn't have been that bad. But the wind was horrible. I know I'm not ready for winter either. Winter hurts my bones. Like, the pain that I endure during the winter is not anything I look forward to. Lidoderm patches are like my salvation in the winter. Literally, I live like a Post-it note wall during the winter. I just have them stuck everywhere. Priscilla, you make sure you take care of yourself. You've got a lot of stress on you right now. But yeah, I'm fine. I'm just a little slower and stiffer than normal, but I'm okay. I expect David will be ready to do a live tomorrow because he's supposed to have off tomorrow. So, hi, Denise. So I just wanted to come in and tell y'all that I'm alive. But most everybody else gave us a really positive reaction to the booth. We even had people from California, like, just absolutely ooh and ah over everything. He sold quite a bit, David, so it moved quite a bit of fur today. And I had a lot of people comment on the dream catchers and the jewelry. My jewelry actually did really well today too. So, and oddly enough, it did better with men. And normally it's the women that flaunt and come over and want to try stuff and look at, they turn their phone on and they hold it up to their ear. And today the men bought tons of my Cody tooth necklaces. I just was like, that's odd. That's a new one for me. But we were on the main road, but we were behind a food vendor. So it helped some because it would bring people in, and when they were standing in line, they would look at the booth. But it hurt because when they had a full line, they couldn't see from the main road. We were like 2 tents in from off the main road. But we still sold, enough to justify going, and it was a good day. I got to actually see people, and I had friends coming by going, if the kids haven't come back and Lane hasn't taken you home by the time I walk back to my car, I'll drop you home if you still want to go home, because they knew how miserable I was. And but I hacked it out until 2:30, and oddly enough, by the time I got home, the sun finally peeked out from behind the clouds, and it burnt everybody up for the evening. So I probably could have stayed and got just as warm as I was getting warm at home. But I only have so much time and energy up every day. And so I was feeling my battery wane pretty hard. And I was like, I'm going to call it quits so that I can actually function tomorrow. So I'm tired. I'm probably not going to do anything the rest of the day but sleep and eat my dinner. And I'm just going to take it easy. But we had a successful day. We got invited. I say we, but it's David. Got invited to another vendor sale about 40 minutes away. It's a couple weekends. I don't know if he's going to be able to do it or not with his work schedule. But he's getting a lot of invitations, and we got a lot of good feedback. But I will say that over the next couple weeks, as I get everything cataloged and thrown up on Etsy, the Etsy store will grow exponentially, and there will be a lot available. Because as much as we've sold, David still has Cody pelts. It's like they keep multiplying or something. I'm like, I thought we'd sold all of these. He's like, well, I sold all that I had hanging there, but I had these over here. And I'm like, how much have you tanned? Apparently, I slept through the majority of it because I thought we had almost sold out because we've sold out of bobcats and foxes. We only have one otter pelt left, but we still have beaver, raccoon, 2 possums, and a bunch of coyotes. So, I missed it. David came home and I tried to catch up with him, and he brought my jewelry in, but I told him, I said, leave the rest in the Jeep till tomorrow. I'm not even going to deal with it. But we had a good day. It was a nice community event, but I will say it was maybe a third to a half of the crowd that the Pumpkin Festival normally draws. It was weird. Like normally it's back-to-back bodies. HiNet is back-to-back bodies at the Pumpkin Festival on the road where they're walking. Like there's no room. And this year it was not as crowded. And everyone noticed. Like we were all like, wow. Normally the 4-way intersection is backed up on all ways, and it takes you 10 minutes to get to the intersection, and you have to creep through Allert. But it never got backed up once today, and the crowd was maybe a third to half of what normally is. Normally they have about 14,000 people come through, so I'm anxious to see the head count that they got for this year because I don't think there was near that many that came through. But the people that did come through that stopped were very interested. And the people that did buy would like bulk buy. Like it was very strange. They would either buy one tiny thing or they would like take a whole part of the table. And I was like, wow, And so it was weird. It was a mixed bag today. But lots of good feedback, except for that one parent. And but I was just hurting enough this morning in the cold, and boy, when she put her child in the middle emotionally like that, I was just like, that's so not necessary. I was just like, poor kid, poor child. It's great for kids to have a curiosity about the world around them. It's great for kids to learn about nature. And I could not imagine growing up in a home that was created by this woman if that's her behavior. It bothered me. But at least the child was like questioning her, like, what's up with you? So that made me feel a little bit better. I was kind of worried about you, Priscilla, because we got busy trying to get everything loaded, and then today we were in a hole. Like I had to like walk up the road and lean to get service to check to see if the kids had messaged about, where they were parking and when they were going to come through. And it was, there's no reception, that just like a dead zone. There's no reception there. So I actually had better reception last weekend in the middle of Big South Fork Recreation Area than I did today in the middle of a flat, right in the middle. I'm like 7 miles from a major town. It was so strange. But I grew up there and I knew that there was no cell service, but I thought it was going to be better. I thought they put in new towers, but apparently the new towers are not doing anything productive for cell service. Imagine that. But yeah, I've just come home and just thought I'm just going to crash. I enjoyed today. It was nice to get out and socialize. I come home to all the news about Putin's speech and all that stuff. And who would have ever thought in the time that your generation would start to grow old, that you would ever see that side of the world turn from abhorrent regimes to possibly having more common sense than anyone in the Western world. I just never thought I'd see it. Just never in my born days. But I also never thought I'd see the money pumped out for questionable purposes, in my opinion. So, we're all seeing lots of stuff we're just not used to seeing. And it's just been an interesting week, but it was nice to get out and actually see people trying to enjoy what turned out to be a pretty day. It turned out to be a pretty day. And by about 11 o'clock, it was, for most normal people, it was a pretty day. But for people like me, it was still painful. So we had actually one guy come by with cerebral palsy, and he was walking, but he was like, I'm beginning to get tired. I was like, I feel you, bud. It's like, I get you. And he bought one of my really pretty expensive Cody tooth earrings. And he asked me to put it on him because of the way his body jerked and shook. And I said, do you have somebody at home to help you put this on? And he waved over. He's actually there with his family and a caregiver. And I was like, okay. And I was like, well, I have horrible muscle impulses too. And I said, sometimes my body does things that I don't ask it to do. It just does it. And I said, I've broken a couple of necklaces that way. I said, you bought one of my more expensive ones. I said, let me give you one of the leather ones. I said, that way you got a spare just in case. And he was like, thank you. And I was like, not a problem. I understand. Very sweet young man, super intelligent, super smart, and was super frustrated with the weather like I was. We were both kind of sat there and was like commiserating over the weather for a few minutes. And, but both of us at the end of the day, we looked at each other and we were like, hey, we're out here trying to enjoy a day. So kudos to us. And so he was very pleasant to talk to and very sweet, and had moved here, from the Midwest somewhere, and really liked it. So he was really sweet. Annette, yeah, it blows my mind. And if you go and listen to his speech, there's some very big truth bombs in there. Just personally, what I feel are very big truth bombs. And I never would have thought that I would. Y'all have seen my videos the last couple of days. I've been snarky, but it's just kind of like, wow, not everyone that lives on the face of this world is blind. And it used to be that we were just all silent, because we were silent because there were so many vicious words and vicious attacks upon us. But it got to a point where the intimidation got so bad that whether we were being intolerant or hateful or quiet, it didn't matter. We were getting attacked anyway. So, after a while of getting henpecked, you just kind of go, I don't freaking care. And you just start telling your truth. And so I think people have gotten to the point where they just don't freaking care, and they're just ready to tell their truth. And it's refreshing to see, because we're not all supposed to be alike. We're not all supposed to be similar. We're not all supposed to be best friends with each other. We're not all supposed to be speaking bad about this or that, or ostracizing these people or that people. We're all supposed to be embracing ourselves and our own culture, and then respecting everyone else. It's not a blame game. It's not a race to the finish of who can be the biggest victim. It's hey, we all have to cohabitate in this world. How about we all be a little bit respectful? And so after decades of just being henpecked, people are finally going, well, crap on you. I'm tired of, I'm going to get attacked anyway. So what, and I personally think it's always best to just say what you mean and mean what you say. So it's refreshing for me to see it. And it might be hard for some people to swallow, but it is what it is, and I don't know how this whole world's going to turn out. I'm not particularly worried. But a lot of people are not in my shoes and may not have the comfort that I have. I'm not particularly worried, but it's refreshing to see people stand up and say, no, I'm done with this. I'm done with this intolerance and this hate, this fear mongering, and this tribalism. And I'm tired of everyone saying what I find to be good, to be bad. And we can't label people that are not like us just because they're not like us. I mean, you have to have a foundation of factual evidentiary, behavior to state this is a bad person. You have to be able to show physical actions that supports your finding. And it's just been an emotional issue for so long. And I think people have just gotten so used to allowing their emotions to dictate society. And I'm like, that's a really bad society. So it's nice to see people stand up and say, hey, either speak from a foundation of knowledge or shut your mouth because I'm not going to tolerate it anymore. And it's refreshing because we've needed that dialogue and that discourse, and that it's almost a negotiation skill. And those are things that you have to have a society that knows how to communicate. And so we've not had a communication in this nation for years. It's been a one-sided dialogue. It's been a one-sided protest speech for years. And so it's very refreshing to see people speaking up and saying, no, I'm not going to be quiet anymore. I have a voice, and my voice should be heard as well. So, and I think everybody needs to have a voice, not just people that I think, are more akin to me. I appreciate different voices as well. I think it's kind of what creates a balance in the world. But as you can see, the teeter-totter has been shifted over the last few decades. And so it's nice to see it start to pan back out, because that healthy balance is so necessary in a society. And we're still way over here, but maybe we'll get it back over there. But I definitely think that the words that were spoken in his speech the other day was definitely words that need to be listened to and researched and heeded. Because he had a lot of truth in there. Whether I don't support how he has led that country and certain things that he's done, but I certainly can support his response to the last few years in this world. Oh, Misfit. I think it's you I emailed about the Dreamcatcher. Anyway, I sent you pictures in a new email. If it is you, I get names mixed up, and I've slept since then, and I'm tired right now, so it may not be. But I sent pictures and emails if you're the one that ordered the Dreamcatcher. It's prepped and ready, and pictures are in your email. So if that's not you, whoever ordered the Dreamcatcher, I emailed you back. So ping me, and we'll get it in the mail. Gypsy's learning links. Look at that. Look at her go. Annette says, I set boundaries with sis. She has decided to talk to me after. Good. Boundaries are great things. Like, it's great to know that someone has a difference, where they will flex to and what they won't flex on, because it creates a healthy balance in your knowledge of each other. And then you don't tread in those red zones that creates issues. Oh, okay, good. It is you. See, I have a brain. It works some days. I'm so tickled. The pictures don't do it justice. The colors in this one are amazing. And I've got it sitting next to a quartz stone right now, charging. I know people would probably think I'm crazy to say that, but most people get that. And I'm tickled with it. Like, it's very pretty. It's my favorite color too, so it's very pretty. But matter of fact, I've got shipments that's got to go out Monday. So everybody that's ordered will be shipped Monday. And life after these vendor sales might get back to normal to where I can get my house clean. Finish this one hanging on the wall behind me. This one is David's taking it to True West for commission. I've got to finish it out. I've hung it behind me purposely, so I have to look at it. So I have to think about what to do to it. That's how my brain works. So I've even got a rattle on the table that I did not finish for this sale. Oh God, yeah. Is it Faisal? I hope I'm not saying that wrong. I have cluster migraines during the change of the year, and I was really afraid that being in that wind today was going to cause cluster migraines. So I'm hoping next week that I don't have cluster migraines. Okay, I'll check my email later today. We have vendor sales and David working 70 hours a week. It's just, he gets in at 3:34 in the morning, and I don't sleep well until he gets home. The last few weeks have been a blur. So his factory took on extra contracts, and oh my gosh. Yeah, the migraines, normally in fall and spring, I get clusters. Oh my gosh. They're horrible. And they're wanting to try me on a new migraine med, but because I have paradoxical reactions to medication, they're like, because sometimes it flares my migraines. And so we're kind of in this limbo about, do we try to, do we not? Do we try to, do we not? And I've done a little bit better this year with the migraines since we got rid of the mastoiditis and all that. But boy, this hurricane week has been rough on me. Like, y'all saw me swell up really bad last week. That was the hurricane, the pressure coming in. And the body pain yesterday and today has been worse, but it's starting to kind of alleviate now. And I think if I can get warm and get my bones warm again, I'll be okay tomorrow. I won't be walking much tomorrow. Not at all. Annette, let me tell you, we have tried to figure out everything. And there for a while, if I ate anything that had red dye in it, immediate migraine. And I went to so many, I even went to an Amish doctor trying to alleviate my migraines. And I think kind of what we think now from the neurologist group and the specialist is that it's probably tied in with my reflex sympathetic dystrophy somehow, and probably so. But I've had migraines horribly my entire life, but they also think I was like genetically predisposed to have this disorder with a trigger, and that trigger was the physical trauma when that boy threw the axe at me. Occupational hazards. I've had some doozies. So I used to be a wilderness camp counselor, so he chucked that axe right at me. So many surgeries. But oh my gosh, like that was the trigger moment for my reflex sympathetic dystrophy, which had probably been an underlying issue longer than I want to realize. But yeah, nothing works on mine either. We can't pinpoint a cause and effect. It just rotates. And now I can eat tomato sauce and stuff again, but boy, it was rough for a while. Sake ginger, tourmaline, ginseng, tequila. That would make me vomit. Or make my pancreas very mad. I just randomly get one and I lose my speech. I go numb. Oh, check into vitamin B12 deficiency. Because I was having the same symptoms, and it turns out my vitamin B12 was so low that it was not allowing anything else to function, and I was actually losing the use of my limbs, and certain organs were blinking. And come to find out, I had a massive vitamin B12 deficiency, and we finally got that elevated back up, and I've done a lot. Super, oh my gosh, it's daylight and dark. But it's one of those sneaky things that they don't always catch. And the shots don't help. You have to be on a long-term dose to get it up there, maintain it, elevate it, and get your body to start building up again. So I learned a lot about vitamin B12 because I was super deficient. Yes, I get the glitter spots, Annette, in my eyes, and I know immediately I've got to get an ice pack on the back of my neck, and I've got to get laid down. And I've got a cold laser. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. They cost about $100, $150. My mother actually bought it for me. And it's kind of like a mini Rife machine. And I use those when I get migraines, and it helps. Well, you watch yourself, because my vitamin B12, it just bottomed in like 3 days. It bottomed out, and they had not caught it all the other times because I was doing this number. And finally they caught it, and they were like, oh my gosh, like I was having severe, like certain days it would bottom out and stay bottomed out for 3 or 4 days. And that was when it was causing the issues. And then it would build back up. So I was spiking and dropping, and they finally caught the pattern and was like, that's what's doing it to you. And I was like, wow. Because now I feel so much better. It's even reduced my Raynaud syndrome quite a bit. So like today, on a normal day when my B12 was low, I would have cramped up and literally fallen over and had to be wheelbarrowed home. So I did much better than normal. I tried TENS units, but they can make my muscles do bad things. So if I get my muscles to doing this, sometimes my muscles will go, wah, and then I can't make them stop. So I have to be very careful with TENS units. Sometimes it does help, and sometimes it makes it worse. Yeah, I do a lot of mineral supplements and vitamins too. I have to be very careful. And that's probably what's made the biggest change in my health the last few years, is going back to some foundational issues. It's made a lot of difference. And honestly, if my hip was not hurting the way it's been hurting, where it's been wanting to pop in and out of socket, I probably honestly would not feel that bad today. So I've done better than I thought I would. Yeah, my whole body shuts down, and I get like a tremor And I get violently ill during my migraines, violently, like to the point where my husband's freaking out. And I'm like, it's okay. I just got to barf until I fall asleep. And I have to let my brain reset. That's the only way I can express it and explain it is like I have to fall asleep and allow my brain to reset. And then I'm okay. But my brain has to reset. I have to sleep well enough for my brain to reset. It's the strangest thing. Yeah, B12, and it's one of those lurkers that I was not aware of. I mean, and like, this is like not medical advice. It's just what happened to me. But I was having those consistent problems, and we were thinking, oh, great, this is huge progression of my neuromuscular disorder. And finally, I had that big issue a few months ago, and they had gone back and they started watching my blood levels a little bit more closely, and they were like, oh, your body is just like it has shed B12 and then it stockpile it and then it shed it, and it just was not keeping a consistent healthy dose, and it was causing I was amazed at the issues that B12 deficiency caused. It will shut your body down. Yeah, I had an ER doctor one day. My neuromuscular disorder affects my pancreas, and so my pancreas enzymes will elevate at times, and my pancreas will just like get a nerve impulse and stop. And I have to go to the hospital and get hospitalized for 5 to 8 days, and they think I'm going to die. And then I pull through, and I'm like, this is normal at this point. I've been told to prepare for death like 3 times now. And I'm belligerent. Keep on ticking. But I had one doctor, he came in and he was like, so what's the cause of this? And I was like, I have a neuromuscular disorder that's spreading to my organs, and it affects my pancreas, and it's caused a lot of enzyme issues. And I said, it doesn't do it often, but when I do it, I get really sick. So here I am, really sick. And he was like, oh, are you sure you're not drinking? And I was like, I don't drink, never have drunk. I had 2 kids by the time I was 21, and then I was a full-time working mom, and then I was a parole officer. No alcohol uses here, buddy, And he's like, are you sure? And I'm like, pretty darn sure. And he's like, well, I'm going to pull an ETOH on her anyway, talking to the nurse. And I was like, you pull an alcohol? He was like, how did you know that? And I was like, parole officer. I said, you're not going to find anything in my blood. And he's like, well, we'll just see. And I was like, okay. And he comes back and he's like, actually, your enzyme levels are really off the charts, and there's no alcohol in your system. So yeah, your pancreas is on the blink. And I was like, duh. And he goes, well, I just normally don't see pancreas issues without someone being, like a super big alcoholic. And I was like, well, I don't normally see people that have gone to 8 to 12 years of college, ply blank idiot, but we're both breaking new bounds today, buddy. And he just looked at me and the nurse giggled. And I was like, comes right back at you when you throw it at me, buddy. And I was admitted for like 8 days after that. And what was really bad was my ammonia levels got really high, and they were freaking out, and they wouldn't come down. So after today, I'm starting to get these spots. So I'm expecting my RSD to amplify over the next few days. When I get these spots, it's my body going, I hate you. So I'm expecting some muscle issues over the next few days, because that's how my RSD likes to start to pronounce. Especially right through here is what it likes to pronounce as a problem. And so I told David, I said, oh, I'm going to have a rough few days. And he said, oh, no. And I said, it's okay. It's worth it to get out every once in a while. Now, some days it's not worth it. In the winter, I'm a hermit. I don't leave. I have a neuromuscular disorder. It's called reflex sympathetic dystrophy. Basically, my nerve system had a traumatic injury, and it's now kind of functions as a diseased nervous system. It doesn't send the right impulses or signals. And so basically it's like having MS, but you can't take any medications to control it. It's a blink in your motherboard, and it's not anything that they can like give a medication to cover the symptoms. So I have to be super careful. Yeah, I actually had to increase my salt intake to make my body start to shed water more, because I didn't have enough salt in my body as well. So, Gypsy, that's a very important B12 fact too. And that is why a lot of people that have issues with their bowels or digestive tracts, that it's one of those silent lurking issues that they don't readily anticipate. So yeah, that's very important. But that's just how it got me. That was my experience with it. It was scary, and it was something that doctors don't like really monitor for, because it is so rare, but it seems like it's not as rare as they make it out to be. I have one of the most rare disorders in the world, and I think my body collects them because my body is just, it doesn't function. So yeah, sometimes like you can have a genetic predisposition toward it as well. But sometimes it can be completely trauma based, and sometimes it's like a conglomeration of both. And as I progressed and seen more specialists, they were like, you've probably experienced a lot of this, through your life. You've just now started to put the puzzle pieces together. And because I'm so rural, it took a specialist a long time to really it took them a little over 6.5 years to diagnose me correctly. Well, they have to catch it in 6 to 12 months to actually try to save any of the nerve function that you're going to lose. So I was way out of the bounds for any kind of aid at that point. So when they diagnosed me, I was actually tanking and crashing so bad that they knew I was just going to have to wait until my body kind of hit a spot and plateaued. And that happened about 4 years ago. And I have dips every once in a while, but I think I'm kind of at a spot where I know my limitations. Growing pains. Oh my gosh. I remember growing pains, mostly in my shins, but yeah, I can't fuss too much because I do so much better than most people that I know that also have this. Most of them are wheelchair bound or bed bound. So much worse than me. I mean, I know it sounds horrible to say, but I feel lucky compared to most people who have this disorder, and because they are so much worse than me. And that's why I'm so terrified to give up, because once they finally gave up and stopped trying to have any kind of life outside of their home, they just kind of went downhill. So I challenge myself to get out as much as I can. But now during the winter, I'm kind of a hermit because it hurts. It hurts to leave the house. The bone pain in the winter is much worse. Yeah, I've heard people talk about the headrest. Yeah, the debilitating injuries from headrest. Yeah. And I've actually heard people about airbags as well have done some weird things. So, I guess anything that they think could be a positive can also be a negative in certain instances. So I guess we just, after you think about it, if you lay down at night and think about how fragile life is, I'm amazed I've made it 44 years. Because I've ridden every four-legged animal you should not climb on. Been on every kind of heavy machinery you probably shouldn't play with. I mean, halter broke show cattle for a number of years, and that's like going to a 2,000-pound bull and going coochie coochie coo. So I mean, I'm amazed that I'm still kicking. I'm amazed I'm still kicking. Insurance is, oh my gosh. Well, y'all know the battle I went through with insurance back in the first year. The husband's insurance at his employer sucked. And it was supposed to be a secondary to my Medicare. Well, all they did was fight about who wasn't going to pay. And I was like, well, this is not how I plan this going, because I pay a lot of money for, everything. And then I have 2 different pharmacy plans, because when I have to have pancreatic medicine, that's sky high. So I have a secondary, but it's just horrible. And so I had to transition to and request that I be terminated from my husband's voluntarily because they were not meeting my need of care, and then request to be accepted by another insurance, which unless you're terminated for specific reasons, they don't have to. Hello, if I'm buying you on the open market, you should just give it to me if I'm paying for it. Hello. And so then I had to request to be contracted under another one, and it is $500 a month. And it's just like, but I'm so sick, I have to have, because I get hospitalized so much and so often normally, I have to have all of this in place, or David had a kidney stone 2 years or a year and a half ago, and we ended up with, after insurance, like an almost $7,000 bill I'm still paying on. I will pay slowly and eternally for the rest of my life. But if I didn't have all of my insurances, we would be sunk. So I pay out of pocket and pay for the extra insurances, and just so that when I am hospitalized, I don't have the stress of that on top of everything else. I meet my deductible, and then we're good. But boy, it's expensive, and I am flabbergasted it shouldn't cost so much money to have a terminal illness. Like, I feel like at some point I should get like a discount. There should be some discount when you hit a certain like type of sickness or a certain type of issue medically. There should be like a discount program for you. So it's like, hey, I know I'm making somebody buku millions of dollars. Can we just return the favor? So, but I was really frustrated because after like 2.5, 3 months, we had to pay, and they took their sweet time stopping to take that from my husband's check. So for about 2.5, 3 months, we paid for multiple insurances. And it was like, we told you to cancel that, but oops. And y'all, we still haven't got some of that back. It's like, everybody wants money from me, but I cannot ever get it from anyone else. And we just kind of knew that was going to be a problem and buckled down for several months and squeaked by. It was, y'all know how much and the HRA account was billed inappropriately and got turned into a state inspector. They're still working on that. They're trying to figure out where $6,000 went to. I mean, it's just like, who billed it? Go after them. Because they were not supposed to, we were supposed to have to submit the receipts for billing. No one else was supposed to directly bill it, but it went bye-bye somewhere. Oh yeah, those big doctor bills were horrible. I mean, they freaked me out. That's where we were. Like, it's so funny because we were $110 over the limit when I first had to retire to get any kind of aid. And I was like, that $110 is really going to buy that $2,000 worth of insurance and medications that I need. Well, just there for a while, my pancreas medicine alone was like $2,100 a month. And it's like, but I'm $110 over the line for any kind of aid in this state. And it's like, gee, that makes so much sense. And so I'm really vocal about how people in rural areas and people in that little gray area between the low and really middle class get milked for everything because they know you can't get any aid and you have no upward momentum. If you're super rural, you're stuck in your bracket, and they know they've got you for life, and they know you have to pay that bill. And it's just like, I'm not a nanny goat. Stop milking me. Really, yeah, I have to say, most chiropractors that I have seen have been way more thorough than physicians. And I went to a chiropractic clinic in La Follette for like 4 years, and he was great. I actually had the most reduction in my migraines during that time. You didn't have to clarify that. You don't owe anyone explanation. But I mean, I appreciate people that come here, correctly, legally. But yeah, you're very well versed in the gray area as well. Yeah. And here in Appalachia, it's because we're super rural. I don't have a local ER. My doctor does not have admitting authority. So I have to go to a county over to go to the ER and just hope that their doctors will converse with my physician and my specialist and throw me in. But some ER doctors won't do that. So they ping pong me, and then I'll have to go back to the doctor, and then my doctor will be like, you need to go back to the ER. And then I'm like, stop. Either put me in the hospital or put me in the ground. Pick one. And finally, an ER doctor would normally admit me. But it's horrible because they don't want, my doctor doesn't have authority to admit me, but the doctors that have authority don't want to admit me because most of them don't understand my diagnosis. So a lot of them come in there and go, so tell me about this. I've never come across this. So I end up telling them all the information and how they need to treat me just for them to turn around and bill me. And I'm like, this does not seem fair. Just doesn't seem fair. But I have that issue a lot as well. And I get frustrated. I tell them I'm frustrated. I'm like, I came here, I'm sick. I shouldn't have to do an hour synopsis of what you should already know. And they get really frustrated with me, but I'm frustrated right back. And I'm very vocal, so they know when I'm frustrated. But yeah, because if I had MS, I would get treated a lot better. But because I have MS's ugly step cousin, that there's not a lot known about, a lot of people that have the issues I have would be in the hospital much more often because as soon as they see that MS diagnosis, they just throw you in and monitor you because they know your body's having issues. But because I have the ugly step cousin that's not really well researched or funded, they're like, we can't milk her for anything, so just send her home. But if I had MS, they'd immediately throw me in and monitor me because they can bill for that. There are diagnosis codes, there are financial programs for that. But because this is not well researched or funded, nothing. And so it really takes a good physician to be like, oh crap, we're going to have to watch you. And then I'm like, thank you. Because there are not many physicians that know a lot about my disorder. And it's a struggle sometimes. And I get really irritated. Like I will point blank tell somebody, you're stupid. So, how do you go to college for that long and stay that stupid? I mean, I will say that to people because I'm not in the best of moods when I am that sick. And David would be like, she doesn't mean it. And I'm like, I do mean it. I'm struggling to understand your ignorance. Oh yeah, no, I sat with pancreatitis one time, and they knew they were going to have to admit me. They'd already talked to my doctor, and they were like, "Send her over." Like he had already conversed with the physician at the hospital. They were like, "Just send her through." I sat there for 6 hours with pancreatitis, which is lethal, waiting to be admitted. And I was like, "Y'all really care?" It was just this. It boggled my mind, and that's another issue with Appalachia. There's just they've closed down a lot of our hospitals. A lot of them were bought from people that were out of country. They used them to launder money, and then they shut them down. And the buildings and the air and the land themselves are still tied up in tax and IRS crap, and they can't be bought and repurposed. And so there is, I think it's the University of Tennessee is currently trying to build us a new like emergency room. It's going to function as an emergency room, like a triage area, because all we have here are 5 ambulances and helicopters, 2 helicopters. That's all we have. So if you get messed up here, you're screwed. So they're trying to do like an ER triage area for us to get the serious people somewhere as a base to be seen before they either transport or fly out. Because we have nothing anymore and we're so super rural. So it's scary sometimes when and I worry about my son all the time because he's an arborist and he's up a tree all the time. And which he got new spikes today, and he was showing me his new, very expensive gaffs. He was so tickled about his new gaffs. But I worry about him because he's up a tree, taking trees apart all day. And I'm like, just be careful. But he uses the 3-point contact system and is very careful. So, yeah. That's basically how it is. It's skeleton staff, and I mean, you have to be like missing a limb to get immediate care. Yeah. And mostly immediate care in those instances are just stabilizing to be flown out. And then you go to Knoxville or Nashville. Oh my gosh, Denise. You need to contact an attorney. I had to call a state inspector about my insurance issues before anyone would deal with it. And the state inspector was like, that's fraud. And I was like, yeah, I know it is. Call my insurance company and tell them that. And I was like, no, they don't believe me. And he was like, I'll check into it. Now, have I heard back from him? No. But the last time I heard from him, he was like, it's very doubtful I can recover your money, but it may be possible that I can charge somebody with theft. And I was like, do what you got to do, bub. I mean, I know that I'm not going to see that money back because it went to something bigger than me. Therefore, I can hold no one accountable. That's America. I just explained America to you. It's that easy. So that's how I feel most of the time. Frustrated. But yeah, I'm sure that I'm not going to be like the swiftest person tomorrow, but I think that as it's supposed to be kind of warmer and sunnier, I think I'll be okay once I get moving. But I'm fixing to lay down and just rest and put plenty of fluids back in my body. And David's bringing me home a plate for dinner because he didn't want me to have to stand and cook. Bless his heart. You should have seen him holding my hand, helping me down the hillside. Lane actually drove down the road and picked me up so I wouldn't have to walk to the parking lot. Bless my son's little heart. And David had to like lead me down the hill. And it wasn't that I can't, my legs were not working. It was that I can't always say that my muscles will lock and restrict movement. Sometimes they just give. And you should have seen David hanging on to me, get me down that little hillside. I mean, it's just a little decline, but it was still like everybody was super terrified But I'm around. I roll. But I was able to get down there and get in Lane's truck, and he dropped me off. And they actually stayed and visited for a minute, and I got to cuddle the baby. So it was all worth it. But I had a good day, even with the weather, even with the wind and the body muscle, nerve, bone issues it caused. I had a good day. It's always nice to get out and get out of these four walls and see people and socialize a little bit. I have to kind of pro and con weigh it out, but I think it was a good thing. Now, I'm going to be more careful when there's winds from now on because the wind was really bad. The last two outings have been bad wind days. So I'm going to have to be more careful about that. But I think once I get up after I've rested and gotten my body warmed back up, I'll be okay. I'm severely wind burnt though. So that's going to be interesting tomorrow. David is red as a beet, bless his heart, because after the wind stopped blowing, the sun came out. And so he's just red as a beet. So if y'all see him tomorrow, he'll be just shining like an apple on a tree. He's just red. But we had a good day. Mostly like 99% positive reactions, even from people like from California and out of state that have moved into the area. So I just know I'm going to pay for it a little bit tomorrow, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as I was prepped for. So knock on wood. Knock on wood. But I'm going to rehydrate, rest, and tomorrow we will do David's proof of life couples chat and check in because he went half the day without me today, and he can tell you more about what happened and who was buying what and what was going on. But we had a good day. Justified what he earned today, justified the vendor setup fee and the time that he spent there. So I've got one fly in my house, and it's driving me nuts. It's been cold here the last few days, and everything has tried to come in when you open the door, especially the cats. The cats have all decided they're house cats now. So every time I open the door, another one will dart in. And then I have to like chase them out. And it's really frustrating because they're barn cats mostly. So 3 of them are like half feral. And so they run in because they've seen the grown-up cat run in that they role model behind. And then they run in and they freak out because they didn't anticipate anything beyond there. And then their eyes meet mine. And then they're like, oh crap, I didn't think this through. So we've had a few skirmishes in the kitchen this week. It's been kind of funny. But it's fall is here, and I feel winter, and with the hair coming in on the horses and the squirrels and the coyotes, I think it's going to be bad. That bear that got brought for David to tan the hide the other day, I bet you it had 5 inches of fat and gristle on its back. And they hadn't even started putting on winter weight yet. They're still pretty lean. You know, they pack on a lot of that weight in the next 5 weeks. It already had 5 inches of fat and gristle on it. It's going to be a bad winter. If the animals' bodies are prepping like that, I don't even want to know how many rick of wood I'm going to burn this winter because it's going to be dramatic. It's going to be one of those winters. So everybody prep. And my bones have kind of told me that for about a month and a half now. I've been feeling it. But that bear told me all I needed to know. I thought, well, crap, it's going to be a bad winter. So there's your weather forecast from the Little Podunk Appalachian. It's going to be a bad winter. And y'all know what winter looked like last year for me because you've seen it behind my back in the kitchen window when I'd open the windows up and show you. That was a mild winter for us up here. So I'm anticipating a lot of snow globe days where I don't leave the house. I'll just let David put on his 4-wheel drive and crawl and play because he used to be in the rescue squad. He loves to get out on days like that. I'll let him go check on the neighbors and check on the senior neighbors and crawl to the grocery store for everybody and crawl back. And I'll just stay under the covers and keep the fire going. So it's going to be a rough winter. All the indicators on all the livestock and animals in the area are worse than I've seen in many, many years. So I don't know if anybody wants to cut a persimmon seed and test my theory. I've not had the chance to do that yet, but it looks like it's going to be a cold, rough winter. So there's your Appalachia history and knowledge for the day. But I'm going to go and soak another bottle of water and rest and watch some stupid Netflix as I let my body just chill, warm, and rest and recuperate. And we will most definitely see you all tomorrow for a live. I'm anticipating in the afternoon or evening, and that's normally when David calms down long enough where I can catch him to sit down. But I'm sure he'll want to tell you how today went per him and kind of give you an idea of what he's going to be throwing up on the Etsy store for everybody And I've told him if, my jewelry and stuff, I'd gift some of it and keep some of it. But I've told him if he wants to throw it up there, he's more than welcome to. So he's probably going to be putting a little bit of everything on Etsy. So I'm just not super attached to it. I've made so much, I'm not super attached. Oddly enough, my mink jaw necklace did not sell. And but my mink jaw keychain and my Cody vertebrae earring sold. So I really was expecting my mink jaw necklace to sell, but it did not. And I've even put it's on a stainless chain, but I put it on a silver. It's on a 30-inch stainless chain, but I put it on a silver pincher, and it's just tiny. I mean, it's just that big. I expected for that to be one of the first things to sell because it's what I see go quickly on other platforms. I had several people look at it, but nobody took it home. But there was quite a bit of interest in my baubles, so I was tickled with the response. I'm just always it's always discouraging when you see that one person that wants to throw you in the pits of hell because you live different than them, and I'm just like, hello, Satan. I'm just like, do you know who I am? We were blessed with great neighbors for this sale, though, and they were super sweet. I actually even bought a little, well, I don't have it next to me. I bought no, it's not next to me. I bought a gnome Christmas ornament. I lied, it's next to me. I bought a gnome Christmas ornament off of her because it was so cute. And it was a great way. She's like me, she doesn't throw anything away. And it was a great way to use scrap lumber. Oscar, I don't have a thing for you. Stop walking over here. It was a great way to use scrap lumber. And she's like, I don't waste anything. She's like, I'm so glad to meet someone else who doesn't waste anything. And I was like, oh, honey, if I can turn it into something, I'm turning it into something. And I bought a gnome ornament because I wanted to show you all. And it's all it is where she's cut wood, and it's cut like a splinter off the wood. And she's painted his little hat, put a little nose and a little beard. And I thought that was adorable. And I got it in orange because this is the year that Haley graduated from UT. So this will be I always do one Christmas ornament a year because my Christmas tree is way too full. And this will be our 2022 Christmas ornament to remind us of when Haley graduated from UT. I thought it was cute, though. Isn't it cute? And that's just completely a scrap piece of wood. And basically the cheapest cotton string you can find in a wood bead. And I told her, I said, I love when people think outside of the box. I never would have thought of that. And I think about some crazy things, but I never would have thought about that. So I was really tickled. She was great. We talked about YouTube. I told her she absolutely needed to do a crafting channel. And they would go and buy old church pews and repurpose them. And she had quilt racks from old church pews that were gorgeous. And then they used the communion cup holders on the church pews, and they repurposed those and put like test tubes down in there and made those like bud vases and stuff. And they were gorgeous, and they would hang on the wall, or they had some that could suction to a window, and they were gorgeous. And I was just like, I never would have thought of that. So she was a very sweet woman. They traveled a couple of hours to be there. They were very sweet. And I told her, I was like, you totally need to create a crafting YouTube channel. I was like, because it's amazing the people that will just come in and spend quality time with you while you're crafting. I said, I talk a lot. I said, but when I do my crafts, I said, I have a good base that likes to come watch. And she was super talented. Y'all think I'm talented. I'm not. I'm just bored. This woman was super talented. But I hope that I gave her my contact information. I hope she contacts me. And because she's just one of those really sweet people that you just gravitate toward. And I hope she wants to do something like that because I hope we keep in touch. She was really sweet. So it was a good day. I'm exhausted. I'm going to shut up now because I could talk the hind leg off a mule. But we will definitely be doing a check-in tomorrow. And I will try to look like a living person tomorrow. I'll probably be windburnt tomorrow too. I'll probably turn red overnight. But thanks for all the prayers, and everybody keep Denise in your prayers and keep Country Christian in your prayers. Everybody, we kind of have a normal little family group think about everybody, send up good vibes. We've got a couple going through some hard spots right now. So keep everybody in your prayers. And this transition to winter is tough on a lot of people, especially the elderly and people like me. So keep those people in your prayers. This is really a hard time of year. And I never would have acknowledged that until I got the medical issues. So that is a prominent concern. This time of year is very taxing for people that have medical issues or are the aged population. And that I was just talking to a 90-year-old at the eye doctor's the other day about that. I had to go in for a secondary eye scan. And I was just talking to a 90-year-old about it. And he was like, this is the loneliest and hardest time of the year because it's when the pain creeps in after a lull and I have to learn to deal with it all over again. But my family kind of isolates before the holidays. And I'd never really thought about it. And I was like, that's exactly what it is. It's an empty void. And I was like, that's why it amps your pain up even more, because you're dealing with it, but emotionally you're not getting, the sustenance to combat it, because everybody does kind of withdraw right before the holidays. And I thought, so smart. I learned something. He put a wrinkle in my brain. And you would think that sitting here with a master's in psychology, I would have broached that idea before, but I had not, because I normally dealt with youth. But it gave me a completely new perspective, and I have a lot of respect for him and people like him, because 90, wow, I'm 44 and I have no desire to make it to 90. It's like, all the women in my family live to ripe old ages, and I'm like, oh Lord, I'm okay if we don't want to prolong, So, but like, I have people that routinely live to 104, and it's like, wow, so it's scary to think about that sometimes, especially with health issues. But he opened my eyes to a whole new thought process. And I told him it was lovely talking to him. He was a very sweet man. Had seen a lot in his days. So, but I need rest now. And I want y'all to rest, have a good night, and come back and be with us tomorrow. And y'all can make sure that I haven't knocked Dave on the head and buried him in the backyard. I swear he's still kicking. So we'll see you tomorrow evening, and I may have a new craft to show you depending on how my hands work tonight and tomorrow. We'll see how my muscles bounce back after this wind. So if I have my fine motor skills in the morning, I may finish something up to show you. I'm super excited about it, but I don't know if I will have the motor skills. We'll see. But come back tomorrow evening, check in with Dave, and I think we're going to be doing a giveaway for a pair of Coyote Tooth earrings. And so if we have a good group again, we'll do the generator, which David gets the biggest kick out of, and we'll pick a number and count the comments again. I wish we had like Whatnot ability to where I could just let it spin on the screen, but maybe YouTube will update someday. But we'll definitely do at least one giveaway, maybe two tomorrow, and try to have about a 45-minute to an hour check-in with Dave. And he just got home. I heard my Jeep beep. So I'm going to go eat dinner. Y'all have a good night. Love yous. Bye.